Dan,
Kyle.
Dan,
Kyle, what's up, buddy?
Dan. Is
Kyle.
it panic time?
It's start to think about panic time.
I think it's
to talk
almost
about
time to panic.
time.
We are in second trimester of the Leafs. I mean, of the pregnancy. What do I do? I mean, the Leafs. I mean, there's so many things, Dan.
At this point, you just have to hold on to something and just go with the rest of the season.
Okay.
Okay. It's just going to happen to us at this point, and we have to accept our fate because we're Leafs fans.
It's terrifying and totally relates to, being a father or about to be a father. Just accept it at this point because your fate is set in stone.
Yeah, there's really no going back at this point.
Well, Craig's not here. Sorry, Craig, you're not here. So we're going to talk about dad stuff because Dan's a dad and I'm going to be a dad. So I thought I'd put those two together just to start the show off. Dan, how do you raise a Leaf fan as a child? Or should you also accept that they are not going to like the same things that you like and therefore not be a Leafs fan?
I would say for the first few years at least, you're in control. Like you're in the driver's seat.
Ooh,
I give
nice.
him Leafs fan, or not Leaf fan, but Leafs pajamas all the time, and he loves them. So now when I'm wearing my Maple Leafs gear, my hat or my shirt, and I say, "Hey Charles, what's this?" He goes, "Maple Leafs," and he says Maple Leafs, not Maple Leaf. So I know he's kind of getting indoctrinated right from the start. I mean, after they can make their own opinions and decide for themselves, who knows? All you can do at that point is bombard them with as much Toronto as you can and watch games with them. I've watched one game with Charles. He was a little younger, but
Yeah.
he didn't really understand what was going on, but he liked that things were happening on the ice and people were flying around. So that's a good place to start.
Does he not watch with you now? Or I guess
No,
he's in
man.
bed by then.
He's in bed. Yeah. Bedtime is structured around hockey. So
That's
he
fair.
goes to bed just before the Leafs start. And I usually
Yeah.
miss the first 20 minutes of the game, but by then it's 4-0. So
If it was like the next generation game, afternoon game, do you think he'd be watching?
it depends. It depends on what we're doing, but I think there's a good chance that he'll be watching more hockey in the upcoming year.
Cool. Do you think that your son is more likely to be a Leaf fan than your daughter will be?
No, not at all. I plan on doing indoctrination on both. So from a young age,
Do not snip that out. Put the Leaf fan part in there.
exactly. So it's just going to be a continuous thing for both of them. They live in this house. Megan doesn't care about hockey, so I get all say in what hockey team we cheer for. So that's
There we go.
the way it's going to be.
There we go. I feel like if you got into a fight, she'd just be like, guess what? They're Habs fans now. Uh-oh.
And she buys the clothes, so really, I'd kind of be in trouble.
Oof, that's tough. Okay, I gotta think about that stuff as my
Start
life
'em early.
continues. Yeah, start them early. Let's get to the Leafs. Lots of stuff happening this week. We had 4 games. We're recording a little bit later. There was a back-to-back yesterday. It hasn't been good. One win. Did they even win a game? Oh god, they won a game.
They won
right?
a game, and they won. Well, they got an overtime point
Right.
last night against Columbus, and then they
Overtime
won against
point.
Pittsburgh.
Oh, the Pittsburgh game was awesome. That was
a great
so
game.
much fun. So much fun. So a bunch of news. Obviously, the trades multiple with Arizona and just terrible play against St. Louis and the Canadiens. And I feel like it was a fighter against the Blues. But we do want to start by sending our best wishes to Rodion Amirov. The news came out today, I believe, that he's been diagnosed with a brain tumor. It seemed... to me, it seemed kind of just off the cuff, and they're like, okay, we're going to take it one day at a time and hope that things go well and stuff. So, again, best wishes to him and his recovery. First-round pick from last year. 2020,
yeah. And that's all you can do right now is stay positive, and it seems like that's what the team is doing, and it seems like that's what he's doing from what, the article and the tweet I read said. But who knows? It's a pretty big hurdle.
Yeah. Okay, let's get to the trades because that's something we really, really like to talk about on the podcast. First trade with Arizona saw Nick Ritchie finally leaving the Toronto Maple Leafs. I guess, unfortunately, but it didn't really work out. So I think he's going to get a lot of ice time in Arizona. So he goes to Arizona, and as well, a conditional third-round pick for next year or a second-round pick in 2025. So that's fun. Like,
Yeah.
yay, you gave it up from 4 years from now. The Leafs got in return Ryan Dzingel, who was, famously played for the Sens and then got traded to Columbus, and he played for Carolina, I think, a little bit.
Yep.
I think he might have even come back to the Sens, and then obviously was on Arizona. So Dzingel came over, and the Leafs promptly put him on waivers.
Got rid of him real quick.
Yeah, and Dubas openly said in his press conference, we talked to Dzingel and told him what the game plan was. So I highly doubt that Dzingel left Arizona yet until figuring out if anyone would claim him or did claim him, and he was in fact claimed by the San Jose Sharks and promptly put onto the second line on the Sharks. So good for Dzingel, because I'm not sure he would have got the same shot with the Leafs, because I'd say we're a little more stacked than the Sharks.
Yeah, I don't think we really needed to look at offense at this point. That's not been our problem, minus 1 or 2 games this week, which are a bad example. But, you're right. We're not going to move too many things around offensively.
You worried that Dzingel left? Are you sad that we didn't get a chance to see him, or just you know what? It's the cost of business.
No, it's the cost of business. I'm not worried about it at all. As I said, I think offensively we're set. We've got some good depth offensively as well. So if we got some injuries, we can bring somebody in. It's, we're not in a bad position offensively. I'm not worried about offense. Defense, I love our D pickup. How do you say his last name again? I've heard it twice now. Lyubushkin. I think he's a fantastic addition to the league, or to the team. He's a defensive D. He's going to be playing on the right-hand side. And I admittedly didn't watch as much of him last night as I should have, because I was a little bit distracted. But from what I saw, he looked pretty good. He's on the top of the league list for hits. He's really high up in blocks. Really solid defensive player. So I think I'm really more excited to get him than to lose Dzingel. Than I am sad to lose Dzingel.
Yeah, and I think most of us agree with that. Ilya Lyubushkin, right-hand D, 27, big guy, 6'2", over 200 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
Only 1.35 mil on the cap, which is good. So really nice. Comes in, he goes towards the cap. Richie goes out. That's 2 point something it was.
2.5.
2.5, and 2.5 for next year off the cap. So that's good business.
Yep.
Dzingel would have been 1.1 coming in, so it's still kind of evened out with the Richie thing. But now he goes out because of the waiver claim. So we traded 2.5 for this year for 1.35 and got rid of 2.5 next year. So I'd say that's some tidy business.
Agreed. I'm very happy with it.
For me, I think I wanted to see Dzingel, mainly because he's played on the Sens. He's had an up and down, sort of thing. I think he could have a potential Engvall role or even a role on the third line there, and it kind of just pushes things down and adds to the depth on the team. Engvall has been playing well, so I have no problem with that. And I still just sometimes worry about the depth when it comes to the playoffs, because someone always goes down. It's harder hitting hockey. It's just different rules and everything. So it wouldn't have been so bad to have that depth, even if he was in the press box or even if he cleared waivers to go to the AHL. But again, it's the cost of doing business, and it gets things off the cap to potentially get something bigger. So overall, do you think this deal was a bit of a steal?
I do. I mean, we got rid of Richie, who was just not performing. He was expected to do really great things, and nothing really came of it. He got 2 goals, if I'm not mistaken, and I didn't bring up the stats because I was so angry about it.
Yeah.
But getting rid of him and bringing in some defense, which we need, because our defense is so. Hall sat last night, which I was kind of happy to see, and Lyubushkin in. I think we came out on top, especially clearing a little bit of that cap space next year, as you were talking about. So I'm pretty happy.
Good. Craig threw in some points for us. He thought absolutely the deal was a steal, and it basically pays for Riley's raise next year, and also mentions the flexibility for another trade. He's a big fan of Lyubushkin if he can move guys in front of the net, which has been a huge problem with our defense. And I know Dangle's been pushing it and whatnot. And specifically in the Habs game, I don't know why I remember this goal. There were so many goals against the Leafs in the past couple days, but the first goal, I think it was, or second goal against the Leafs, Josh Anderson politely pushes Brody out of the way. Now, if they weren't on skates, that polite push would literally do nothing. But they are on skates. So they moved him a little bit. I feel like Brody's he's got to be a little bit stronger than that, or he's got to find Anderson and be like, no, you're not supposed to be here. Get out of here, sort of thing, without causing interference. So hopefully Lyubushkin can do that. Getting a little ahead of myself. He did play in Columbus. I thought he did okay. There was obviously the third goal against the Leafs where he was kind of the primary problem. They got the puck past him, and he was not fast enough to catch Gauntz, or I can't remember who it was. So that's maybe a problem. When I saw him,
maybe.
When I saw him running around in our own end, I was happy. He was huge. He was pushing people around. In the offensive zone, I feel like he was trying to be too offensive. Wow, he moved around so much. He seemed like kind of a Liljegren sort of thing, trying to prove his offensive nature, and I don't think we needed that. I think it should have been just like, chill, stay at the blue line, push people around in our own zone. Yeah. Don't worry about scoring. It's not why you're here. Like, it's cool, but
get a good back check and don't let anybody through. Don't pinch. That's kind of the main theme right now.
That's definitely a main theme. Don't pinch. Please, just don't. Okay, back to the trades. We also had another one with Arizona. We're getting Carter Hutton, but he's not coming to Toronto, and he's not even going to the Marlies. He's going to stay in Arizona with the Roadrunners, because that's the thing you can do in the NHL. You can literally trade a player and say, we're going to loan you to this other AHL team so you don't have to move, and that's fine, because we don't need your depth in the AHL. We need you potentially in the NHL if 2 or 3 goalies go down, which I think is fine.
And they got him for future considerations. I mean, that's a pretty blurry line. Like, are there any parameters around that, do you know, that limit what you can do within future considerations?
I feel like it just pushes what it could be down the line.
Right.
Because I'm pretty sure it could also turn into nothing. Like, literally, it doesn't even have to be a 7th-round pick 6 years from now or whatever. It can just be, well, this didn't pan out, and it wouldn't have panned out for you either, so let's just call it even.
And it's not going to happen with big name players. It's going to be the Huttons and
of course. So. I think it's just a little bit of security if Hutton, for whatever reason, goes off and just goes on a playoff run. Arizona can say, let's go. You owe us a third now or a second for this. Okay. Which I don't think it would ever go that high for future considerations, but it could go up maybe as high as a third or a fourth.
Yeah, they'd consider it.
Yeah. What can you tell me about Hutton in the past couple of years or even before?
I mean, so Hutton in the last, going back to 2016-17, he was with St. Louis, had a fantastic save percentage and goals against average. He was looking, low 2.9, 2.39 for those 2 years, and then well into the 900s, 931 kind of thing for St. Louis. Then he hits Buffalo, and it kind of goes downhill from there, which makes a little bit of sense. Mm-hmm. And he played for Buffalo for 3 years, kind of averaging just under 900. Goes to Arizona, plays 3 games, not very well. And now he's in our house. And I think it adds a little bit of depth to our goaltending situation. But again, I don't, it would be extreme situations that we'd ever see him.
And I remember him being kind of the big pickup for Buffalo when he was a UFA. He did really well. He kind of kicked out, I think it was Jake Allen out of the net at that point, because Bennington hadn't come up and they hadn't won the cup yet. But he kicked Jake Allen out of the net, really went on a stream, and then he cashed in with the Buffalo Sabres and did not pan out at all. Just more Eichel years wasted, and here we are with them. Good lord. So a little bit of depth, I guess.
His first year with Buffalo, as you said, was pretty good, but then, he's kind of waning in his career at this point. I think he's 36, did you say? So, he's got a few years left, but, best years are behind him. That's why it's future considerations.
Yeah, absolutely. Good lord. What do you think comes next in terms of trades and stuff? We're going to bring this back maybe a couple times here, but I doubt Dubas is done, especially since this trade went down like literally during the Blues game or just at the very end of the Blues game. And it almost seemed reactionary. It's like he's got
Yeah.
his finger on the trigger and he could pull it, and then the Blues game happened. He's like, we're doing this. We got to do this. Because Hall was so bad. So bad.
Really,
We'll get
really
to that.
bad.
But Dan, what do you think potentially comes next for Dubas in trade life?
I mean, that's a tough one. I maybe defense, but at the same time, getting a little nervous with our goalies. Campbell's been solid throughout the year. He's had a little bit of a rough patch, and then I think I said that 3 weeks ago when it was like, okay, rough patches happen, but he's kind of continuing the rough patch. So assuming he can get back up, his save percentage is still fantastic. I mean, he's still 9.20 and he's goals against 2.46. So no worries yet. But if he keeps showing weakness in getting, there were a lot of goals against him. Well, first, there was a lot of goals against him in the last 4 games, but there were a few goals that just, those shouldn't be Campbell goals. Those shouldn't be things he lets in. So I'd probably like to see maybe a little bit of backup in the goalie area that's not a 36-year-old goalie at this point.
So we did talk about this a couple weeks ago about potentially Mrazek going out.
Yeah.
Because he's got quite a cap hit and bringing someone else. Do you think maybe that comes to fruition now that Mrazek has been a little shakier, or did they just stick to it?
I mean, he didn't look good against Montreal. I think there were a few goals, and I know you and I kind of disagree on this, I think.
Yeah. Oh, well, I have something about that actually later, yeah.
Fair enough. I would like to see him play more. Knowing that we have Campbell, Campbell can play well. He's had a few bad weeks. Hopefully he can recover from that. But I would like to see them have kind of a tandem going into the playoffs. So I would like to see him play more.
So tomorrow night against the Wild, do you think Mrazek plays or Campbell plays?
I would put in Campbell. And that's only because he's had a few rough games in a row, a few multi-point games. I think I would put him in, reaffirm his confidence, but then back and forth Mrazek. Although, having said that and thinking about how the order of the games goes, I think we're probably going to see Mrazek.
Yeah, I think maybe Mrazek tomorrow against the Wild, and then Campbell against the Red Wings. Yeah. The Red Wings, though, much lower in the standings. Maybe that's what gets Campbell's confidence back.
Fair enough.
But if it's the opposite, maybe it gets Mrazek's confidence back, and so on. And so he put up pretty good numbers against the Red Wings than last time we saw them as well.
That was supposed to be the Montreal game.
Oh my God, we're kind of going through a stretch here of non-playoff teams for the next week and a half. Interesting. Didn't notice that. We've got Wild, playoff team. Red Wings, probably not. Capitals, probably yes. And then Sabres, Canucks, Blue Jackets, Kraken, Coyotes, Sabres, Stars. All of which
that's not bad.
Are not in the playoffs for the beginning of March. Interesting. Okay, hopefully the goalies can really get it back. But as we saw, oh my God, the Leafs suck at playing sucky teams like the Habs. Yep. Oh my God. Montembeault, their goalie, is not good. We've seen it over and over again, but they couldn't get a puck past him. So the Habs go on a 3-game winning streak with the Leafs being the third.
Highest of the year.
Highest of the year at this point. And it sucked. It was the worst. We made a bet. How many goals are they going to score? And I'm like, they're going to score 6 or 5. We said 4, 5, 6. It was such a bad idea. We had 5 scored on us. It was the worst.
But at the same time, that kind of goes back to our defensive problem because you can't let Anderson get his own 2 rebounds in front of Mrazek. You just can't allow that. He's going to score every time.
But he hasn't been doing that all year. This just been such a bad team all year. So why can't the Leafs play the Habs? Is it just the demons in their head? Is it the coaching change that they just had with Marty St. Louis? Such a cool player behind the bench now. Is it just help?
I mean, I loved St. Louis when he was playing, so who knows? That could be it. But I think it's the battle of something for the Leafs always ends poorly. The battle of the original 6 or the battle of Ontario against the Sens. We always go into these games thinking, okay, we've gone into the Sens games recently thinking, okay, great, they're low in the standings, we should be fine, and then they pull something out of their ass. I saw that in the last 5 minutes of the Columbus game, the Leafs really turned it on because they were down by a few.
Yes.
Makes sense. But they need to be playing like that for 60 minutes. Like, you
Yeah.
can't beat these teams, that even the good teams, if you're not doing that. But if you're not doing it against every team, you're just going to go out of sync with yourself and with the team. And you have to form a pattern of the actions that you're going to take. And so I think the Leafs are kind of missing their intensity through a good chunk of these games.
I agree with the intensity. However, against the Canadians and Columbus, I thought they were the better team the majority of the time. They had a lot of pressure. Maybe it wasn't gritty pressure. Maybe it wasn't dirty pressure. It was, very refined, kind of Leaf-like a little bit, because they kind of do that. But then they make like one mistake, and it's a big, big mistake, and it's capitalized on by the other team. And I feel like the Leafs don't capitalize on the mistakes of the other teams quite as much. I don't know why. Maybe the other teams, when they make a mistake, they get a little heavier. And they're like, okay, well, the only way we can get away from this is to hit. Or the only way we can get away from this is to take a penalty. And sometimes that just stops a goal, and then you get through the PP, and it's whatever. I don't understand that part. And I think you're right. It does come down to defense, as it often does. But I don't understand why this team cannot score. They're so skilled, and they've showed us that they can do skillful goals. They can do dirty goals. But sometimes it just doesn't happen.
Keep in mind, though, our top line's fantastic. You'll see usually a goal by one of those three or some solid assists. But the second line's been struggling.
Yes.
Tavares, they put up a shot count on Tavares during one of the games. I think it was against Montreal.
Mm-hmm.
And he hadn't taken a shot in 48 game minutes.
Yes.
So that was multiple games. Like, that's not good. Like, your second line needs to be there backing up the first line with a whole bunch of shots on goal and making a whole bunch of plays, like set plays, moving in and at least getting shots on net. If that's not happening, and Nylander's slumping also, sure, he had 2 goals in, I think, the game against St. Louis, and they were beautiful goals. But that's kind of what he does. He gets on a roll, scores 2 or 3 goals in a game, or 2 or 3 goals back to back in 1 or 2 games. But then he's kind of been slumping for the rest through the year. So, and then Kerfoot is Kerfoot. But if you're not getting a lot of support from the others, then it's not working. So our third line's scoring. Our fourth line's decent. Spezza's doing well.
Yeah.
I'd like to see a bit more from Simmons, of course, but again, he's not your goal scorer. So
yeah, Tavares in Tavares' defense against Columbus, he was trying so hard. He really wanted one. He was banging his stick down when things didn't go in, and you could see he had the chances. But the defense just collapses on us. And again, they're a little grittier for sure. Nylander, I don't know. He's
hot and cold.
He's so laissez-faire sometimes. He doesn't get intense ever. It's just go and go back to the bench and go back to the bench. And, well, I tried, and, well, it didn't work. Okay, moving on, which can work as an attitude sometimes, but I want to see him get mad. It's just not him, though.
Oh, I'm on such a fence because at the start of the year, I was saying, yeah, it's great we have Simmons and I love having Spezza and a good shutdown line. Although I don't really want to see them fight because I don't love fights in hockey. But I got to admit, right now, I want some fights. I want some momentum changing when the game is not going well. Games, like, come on, against Montreal, you couldn't have found a fight in there with Anderson or something like that.
Oh,
and knock him out
Simmons should have got in there.
Yeah, so you're right. I'd like to see a little bit more grit from this team right now. We have offense kind of locked down for the most part. I'm not worried there.
Mm-hmm.
But the intensity, you're right. And then defense, obviously, is a consistent problem.
So we've been posting a little bit more. And our good buddy Eric, my brother-in-law Eric, he decided to comment after our big loss to the Habs. And I'm going to read out the comments just in case you don't follow us. Don't forget to follow us on all your favorite social media. This is from Eric. Well, I said this before. They have no mental toughness, and they being the Leafs, and no grit to their game. That's why they don't have success in the playoffs. Add to that the mediocre defense, which we've just talked about, and you have results like Monday night's game. And even if Montreal is in last place, they can beat anyone in this league. Maybe. But also, I could say that about almost any last place team or any NHL team because it's the NHL. Like, these players are awesome. Players are awesome. Okay, let's
I
keep
will
going.
say, though, Montreal did start going for a run this time last year. Now, they're not going to make the playoffs this year, but,
That's
they do
true.
have a team that can do that.
Oh, my God. Okay, don't put that energy into the air. Back to Eric. I think their position in the standings isn't entirely indicative of how good this team can play. Now, the key word I think there is can play. The
Yeah.
Leafs can be responsible for the biggest beatdowns, but they also let teams make monumental comebacks against them. The trick is to find the middle ground to make a playoff run. I would agree with the majority of what Eric said there. I think we need some more grit. I think Dubas has been accumulating that grit, but they just haven't been doing it. Is that a Keefe thing? I feel like it's not because he's a gritty guy. He's just F this, F that. I feel like it's go, 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 but I don't know. Why can't we have just a little bit more snarl to some of these hits, to some of our defensive play?
I think the one thing middle start of the season or something like that we were talking about that the Leafs needed to have was consistency. And they don't. They go hot and cold. And it kind of happens all at once. When the defense goes cold, the goalies end up going cold because a lot more shots, a lot more goals go in. And then the offense gets going, and we haven't been seeing a ton. Like, the shots in the last 4 games were great. The goals were great. We scored, how many? If we tallied that up, 8. I don't know. That's like 12 goals or something, looking at it quickly.
Yeah.
Which is not bad in 4 games. But we're letting in so many more. And if we're not consistent throughout the 60 minutes of hockey and we're not consistent throughout the entire season, then we're not a playoff team yet, which is really hard to say because this team is built like a playoff team.
It's close. I think it's close.
Yeah, fair enough.
It's not quite there.
Where would you tweak right now if you could?
Well, Lyubushkin is a step in the right direction if they take the reins off him. If they say, you are big, go be big, hit.
Hit people.
Hit
Take them
people. You don't have to pinch. We're not asking you to be offensive. Simmons, get the reins off him. You know what? I think our forwards are good, but I wouldn't mind another Foligno type. I wouldn't mind somebody like that. Skillful, obviously. Second, third line skillful, but with grit. That was Calgary. Calgary was huge.
Yeah,
they were just throwing us all over the place, but all skillful. The Blues, quite big, also skillful. Obviously, these are the most coveted players in the league. So it'd be nice, maybe someone like Giroux, because he's a big, nasty guy, and he gets up in Crosby's face or Matthews' face every single game.
Yeah.
But that's a tough price to pay for a UFA. So I don't have any specific names, but I still think it could be in the forwards. And again, it just pushes things down. It doesn't mean that players lower are playing worse, but it's okay to have depth. And let the reins off a little bit. Like, Sandin, you are jacked. Come on.
Yeah.
Throw a hit,
I'm surprised they took him out.
And I think most of it is cap implications.
Yeah.
Which is fine and dandy. And Muzzin has not been himself this year at all. He was brought in for that grit a couple years ago and re-signed for that leadership and grit as well. So something's going on, and he was hurt during the Habs game. So it seems like he'll be out for a couple weeks, potentially only back for the playoffs, which is obviously bad for the human, but potentially interesting for the cap. And we always want people to be healthy, and we always want the players that are part of the team to be part of the team, and Muzzin is awesome when we want him to be with the team. However, the Leafs did some crazy cap magic that we literally just got a tweet from Cap Friendly about, directed to us, of course, we're buddies.
Of course, yeah.
So prior to placing Muzzin on LTI or LTIR, the Leafs made these moves. They sent Sandin down and brought up Menel and Rubens. Those are 2 defensemen that are younger. One's on his ELC, and one we got in a trade from the Wild last year. I think it was just for a 7th-round pick. He's a right-hand D. could have seen him. We could still see him, but he's basically a depth option. So doing this, it brings their cap hit to $81,499,111, which is only $889 from the upper limit of the cap, which is $81.5 million. So what happens is if you get really, really close to the upper limit, and then you have to put a player on injury reserve, you're allowed to now go that much more over the limit. But if you're not super close to the limit, then anything left over is subtracted from your LTIR space. So Cap Friendly saying this is one of the best kind of LTIR moves they've ever seen, and therefore they can now exceed the cap by Muzzin's almost full contract of $5.625, which is some Tampa Bay Lightning
crazy
shit.
So nuts.
Fucking, let's
It's
go.
like playoffs right now.
Yeah, Kucherov, $9 million. You're gone. Okay, let's get up to the cap. It's just like, what? What? Did I get all that right, Dan?
Yeah, I think so. It's a crazy rule. So I had no idea this even existed. It's called the accruable cap space limit. I did look a little bit up about this before the podcast, and there are a ton of different variables that go into it, and the calculations actually get pretty complex further you go in the year, or if it's preseason or whatever. But it's working in the Leafs' favor right now. It allows them to make some moves with Muzzin out. So, hey, I love it. If we get to do some Tampa Bay stuff and maybe stack our team a little bit going for a playoff run, go for it.
Assuming Muzzin stays out for an extended period of time, potentially, to the playoffs. And honestly, I know it is a little bit of cap shenanigans, but I think similar to Mark Stone, because Mark Stone is out and he's had a nagging injury for a while. I don't expect him to come back before the playoffs, especially because Jack Eichel is back and they will never be able to make those two work on the cap this year. I think they should just keep Muzzin out anyway so he can heal. They've been bringing him back, gets a little bit injured, bringing him back, gets a little bit, and he's just not himself. So I think an extended healing period is actually good for Muzzin. Sure, maybe a little bit of cap shenanigans, but also a little bit of mercy, too, for the guy.
Yeah, now there is some risk that the Leafs are taking on doing this, because let's say Muzzin's medically cleared to return in 7 games. They have to then clear that cap space that they gained over the salary cap, so become, again, cap compliant. And the player will not be able to be activated until that's done, but they also can't stay on LTIR. So they have to figure out what happens if they exceed those, or if they break those rules. And it could really mean some send downs we don't want to have happen, or some really bad cap allowance issues.
Which the league almost never enforces because
but
Tampa and so on and so on.
It's Toronto, so they're going to enforce it the day it happens.
Yeah, of course. Fuck. Now that Muzzin from the left side is kind of out, that obviously opened up a spot for Lyubushkin to come in on the right, and nobody has to play on their offside.
Yep.
I think they have more options now to bring in a bigger player on the left to potentially replace Muzzin. Again, pushes people down. If that means Dermott goes, that's still okay, I think, if it's a bigger player. And it just needs to be a defensive player, because Liljegren is good offensively and likes getting up in there. Yeah, the points aren't there, but he likes to go up. Sandin, offensive player. Same thing, points aren't there, but he likes to go up and he seems to do well. So I think each line has their offensive player, but not each line has their defensive player. So I would love if they got a big left-handed defenseman. Now, unfortunately, that Muzzin is out for an extended period of time. I don't have a name yet. I'll go get one.
Hey, look at Dahlstrom, man. 6'4", 230, left hand. That would be a great addition to the left-hand side on the third.
Oh, that's in our minors, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it might be
I've heard Dubas talk about him a couple times, so that could be an option for sure.
Yeah. Well, hey, if you're wanting somebody big, that's about as big as it gets on the team.
Absolutely. Okay, so, yeah, we played the Canadiens, we lost. I say, and Craig doesn't have a vote on this because he's not here, that we don't even count that bet because it was so bad. Nobody wins out of that. Even though we picked 4 5 and 6. Obviously, the person who picked 4 technically wins, but no, nobody wins. So we're going to push that, and we'll wait until Craig comes back to do our next bet. So I thought it'd be really cool to bring back one of our favorite segments, Stocks with Dan.
There you go, buddy.
We did this at the very beginning of the season where it was just Dan and I again. And Dan's a big stocks guy. You want to tell us kind of a very quick 30-second what's going on with the stocks these days? Like what we should be buying? Everything's bad.
No, everything's bad. Don't put money in the stock market. It's crashing. Everybody run.
Okay.
I mean, that's oversimplifying it a bit, but holy hell, it's pretty fun out there.
Everything's on fire.
No, it's pretty wild out there.
What about crypto? Like, that's obviously the new big thing. Every single commercial I see, especially on YouTube, Wealth Simple, this app to help you with crypto, this person to help. And I'm like, crypto's not real, people. Like, stop. But also, everyone's making potentially a lot of money off it.
They're really pushing crypto right now. Crypto and NFTs are kind of something that's going to be huge. And I think we've already seen some NBA NFTs. I think we'll probably start to see some NHL NFTs. You can probably, I'm sure somewhere you can buy a Toronto Maple Leafs NFT right now. So I have no idea what they are. I mean, I know what they are, but I have no idea how they work. But crypto is definitely a thing. And yes, you're right. People are making money off it.
If I can't touch it, it's not a thing.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Come on.
You can buy a physical Bitcoin for 48,000 or whatever it is.
Hard pass. Not for me. Not for me. Let's do a little blast from the past review of some of the stuff that we potentially bought and sold in terms of the NHL back in the day. So I did ask Dan, what were some of the Leafs players that he might buy and sell at the very beginning of the year? Because this was like our third episode of this season. So Dan said he would sell kind of the bottom D. So Dermott, Liljegren, you know, they weren't really having some upside. Would you back that up and say that was a good move?
I mean, I kind of like Dermott. I think he's been playing well. I really like watching him. So no, I'd keep him at this point. Liljegren, I can take him or leave him. I don't think I ever really had a soft spot for him, but I like watching him play. So I'm going to stick with that one.
Okay, and in terms of growth stocks, you're thinking long term. Obviously, you'd pick up like the top 4 because they're just going to keep going up and up and up. Now, during this little downturn, would you still keep Tavares and Nylander long term, or would you kind of cut your losses right now?
Nope, keep them long term. There's nothing wrong with these guys, unless this is a end of season problem that they're having with these guys on the second line. Maybe look at it then, but right now I'm not too worried about it.
Okay. And then your dividend stocks, you said Spezza and Simmons. Sticking with those guys long term, or you're like, oh, maybe not.
Spezza's paying out like a dream, buddy.
I know,
now,
right?
Yeah, absolutely. Now Simmons, he's great. It's good to have a big player on the team. I'd like to see a little more out of him.
Okay, and we talked about short-term stocks. Maybe like you talked about maybe Marner or Muzzin just for short-term stuff. You want to know the guy that I picked short-term?
Who's that?
Fucking Mrazek.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Terrible short-term stock to get because he got injured on his first fucking game, and then he got injured again, so he wasn't playing, which means his stock is plummeting. And I probably would have sold him at that point.
Especially after the Canadiens game.
Oh, yeah. But then there was that part where he's like, shing! He probably went up in value, in which case I would have already sold, and then I would not be good at this stocks game. But that's okay. We can still make this little game work. We also talked about teams as stocks. So Dan says he buy the Sens as kind of a buy low, sell high sort of thing. Do you think, based on how the year has gone for the Sens, that purchase is still a good idea long term this year? Have you lost money? What do you think?
I mean, I'm down money for sure, but I'm not too worried long term. I think the next few years we'll see some growth from the Sens. They've got a young team and they're kind of training them on how to play in this league, so I'm going to stick with them.
You just got to grit and bear it sometimes. Oh, losing money. It's going to go back up. It's going to go back up. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. Okay. Winnipeg and Vegas. You also said those two teams long term. Based on Winnipeg's play this year, kind of unexpected that they are so low in the standings and not a playoff team and kind of unlikely to be a playoff team at this point. Do you think Winnipeg was a good purchase or maybe sell at this point, not long term?
Yep, taking the loss on Winnipeg for sure. And then very, very happy with the Golden Knights outcome.
Yeah, I'd say their stock is rising dramatically with the return of Eichel. It sounds like Leonard might actually come back. He might have had an injury that put him out for the year, but I think he's going to come back, which is great for my fantasy as well. That's so good.
Which is pretty incredible because if I remember correctly, they were terrible at the start of this season.
Yeah,
And so
it
they've had
wasn't
a
good.
like meteoric rise up to the second place in the Pacific. So I'm very happy with them.
Mostly first place for the majority until the Flames decided to get super hot.
Win 10 in a row? Absolutely.
Yeah. Oh my God, is it 10?
They're a
That's
scary
10.
team right now.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, that is a flaming team. Okay, you also talked about selling Montreal. Wow, what a great idea. Sold when they were going to the Stanley Cup final and then are now terrible.
Yep. I had a feeling there might be a little bit of that hangover from the Stanley Cup. And I also, internally don't want to see them succeed. So that was a good one.
What teams that you also decided to sell were Tampa and Florida? How are you feeling about that sell at the beginning of the year?
Super good. Yeah, no, that was definitely a mistake. Florida, I think I overlooked Florida. They have had an amazing season, and everything about their team right now is kind of clicking. Tampa, I thought, would have a little bit of a playoff slump or a Stanley Cup slump after winning 2 in a row.
Yep.
Clearly, that hasn't phased them, and they're looking for a third.
Now, I said I would buy Vancouver at the beginning of the year, and you mentioned this as kind of a pump and dump sort of thing. Really, really get them going, and then maybe as they start to see signs of error, that you dump. I think the pump and dump idea did work for them because they were so bad for an extended period of time. If I was disciplined enough to hold on, and then Boudreaux happened, that stock would have been rising so hard. And now they've kind of evened out or even gone down at this point. Not looking like a playoff team again. Still have a decent record over the past 10 games, 6-3-1. That's not so bad.
Yep.
And Demko is awesome. Their goalie, he's so good. And he shut down the Leafs a couple nights ago or weeks ago as well. So, I don't know. Long term, do you think that's a pump and dump, or do you think it's a hold on?
For Vancouver, I'd say let them go at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean they play Calgary next on Thursday, so that's 11 in a row for Calgary. That'll surpass their league or their franchise record, and that would be a big blow for Vancouver. So
we're coming up to the trade deadline, so that means some players' stocks may be increasing coming up, but also it's a bit of a risk. Maybe you buy them now, assuming they'll be traded. So then for their stock might go up. They may be going to a better team and just be better. Do you think that's a good analysis of trade deadline in terms of stocks?
Absolutely. I think it's perfect.
Okay, so would you buy some of the following players? Would you buy the aging Claude Giroux?
Absolutely. I would bring him on as in the same way we brought on like Marleau or Thornton, some really decent veteran experience for the young guys, and then he still puts up good numbers, still playing for Philly. So absolutely I would take Giroux. He's a fantastic player. It's always nice to have one of those, big name players on your team.
Now remember, buy for the stocks, not buy for the Leafs.
Yeah, I know. I don't think there's a large amount of future value left in him, but this would be just a fun one to own. It's like owning Tesla. It's fun to own, but who knows what the hell's going to happen.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, back to our lovely Habs. Ben Sherratt, UFA, obviously highly coveted because of his size and such.
Yeah,
pretty good in the playoffs, not putting up the points, but again, the size, playoff performer. Are you buying Ben Sherratt's stock as we're getting closer to the trade deadline, or not? Maybe not.
I would be absolutely. I mean, from a Leafs perspective, we need defense. He's a big guy. He's still playing well on Montreal, even though they're struggling. From a stock perspective, if he gets traded away, it's going to be to a better team mathematically because the Habs are in the bottom. So it's a win-win either way.
Now, we talked about this player a couple times, Jacob Chikrin, who's playing for the Arizona Coyotes right now, left-hand D or right, I can't remember, left or right, doesn't matter.
Left.
He, a longer-term deal, but in the $4 million, so affordable. Do you think he gets traded before the trade deadline, or is this more of a risk and we should avoid buying this stock?
This one I would actually stay away from. I think you're right. There's a little bit more risk here. Yeah, he's playing for Arizona and he's having an okay year, But again, that's a lot of salary cap to bring on, and the risk is pretty high with that. So I would hold on him.
Okay, another potential risky one, but I would say really high reward. Phil Kessel. Do you
I love
buy
that you put him
him?
on here. Yeah, I'd buy Kessel. Of course I would. I liked Kessel when he was on the team. And, it's an amazing hockey family there. So, yeah, I would buy Phil Kessel based on nostalgia.
You think he goes back to a team like Pittsburgh?
What's he worth right now? What's his cap?
Well, the Leafs are still paying some of it. So.
Yeah, $8 million? Probably not. I mean, that's a lot of money to unload. I'm not sure what Pittsburgh's cap availability is right now, but I don't know if he's going anywhere in the near future.
Well, it's 6.8, so that's not too bad.
Okay, that's not bad.
6.8. He's a UFA. Like, he's not staying in Arizona, so Arizona definitely wants to sell that.
Yeah, that's fair.
For sure.
Fair. That's a big contract.
Like, maybe I don't know. I could also see Boston potentially picking him up. Yep. Returning to Boston. Good lord.
That'd be ugly. Don't want to play them in that case.
Yeah, no. Last stock for players, Marc-Andre Fleury. Do you think he moves, and do you think that's a stock that may rise, or if it doesn't move, then
I think he will probably move. But given that he's playing well, his even though he's playing for Chicago and they're doing not great this year, and they've had a lot of press coverage and just a lot of kind of turmoil around that team right now, he's still playing well. So even if he moves, which is definitely possible, as you said, he's going to be worth something later. He's also one of the veteran players. He's a league team leader. I would take him in a heartbeat.
Gotcha. Okay, last thing for our stocks segment. There's kind of three groups of teams in the league right now. There's the top teams that are probably shoo-ins for the playoffs. There's the bubble teams that could make a run and get into a wild card spot. And then there's teams that are basically looking towards next year and the years beyond. Let's say you have to sell your stocks at the end of the regular season. And you can't go beyond. Which teams or which group of teams are you thinking of buying? Are you buying those top teams because they're still just going to get better and better? Are you buying the bubble teams as a risk? Are you buying the futures? What do you think?
I'm almost tempted to say I'd buy some of the bubble teams. I think we could see Anaheim's doing decently well right now. Columbus is playing well. They looked really good against Toronto. They could jump up into wild card spots. I would probably go with bubble teams right now just for the potential. The top teams, I think, they're locked into playoff standings. They're not really moving too much, but you could see some real movement from bubble teams.
Yeah, especially in the West. You're right. Anaheim,
especially in the West.
Dallas. Man, if Vancouver actually did pull it off, that's a huge rise.
Can you imagine?
Huge
That would
rise.
be amazing.
They're only technically 5 points behind, but they have a couple games.
They've got 2 games.
Yeah. So
hey, it could happen.
It could happen. Okay, that was fun. We will check in on our stocks when we come back again. The next time Craig bails on us because he moves apartments. And oh my God, I'm still hurting from that. Are you hurting?
Yeah, everything's sore.
Everything is sore. But I've still continued to work out this week, and I completely regret it, and I should take a day off. But I can't. You got to get pumped, man. You got to go.
Just like the Leafs.
You got to get huge because you got to push around other teams because your team sucks. Stop sucking, Leafs. Fuck.
Just win a few in a row. Get the fans' confidence back. That's all get your confidence back. That's all you need to do. They'll be fine. Every team goes through this, right?
Yes.
Right?
Maybe. I don't know. I haven't seen Tampa or Florida
just win
go through.
Some fucking games.
Who's the best? Okay. This was so much fun. Was this fun? This was a good time.
Yeah, I absolutely loved it.
Okay, let's get out of here. And go Leafs, go.
Go Leafs, go, baby.
Go Leafs, go. That's Greg.
The high pitch really